Fragments of Silicon, brought to you by electronic distractions from the horrors of daily existence.
All right. I'm not sure the electronic distractions are working anymore.
They're trying.
Yeah, I'm just saying the world is on fire, in some cases, literally. Like,
Mm-hmm.
if you're on the West Coast.
Yeah, pretty literal.
Yeah. Anyway, now that we've super dated our episode, I'm your host, Adam. Welcome to another installment of Fragments of Silicon. It is our Season 9 finale. Yeah, the episode counts a bit short, but, E3 happened, so...
E3, and we pumped out something
lost more episodes than usual.
Yeah. I'm like, well, it's like 24 to 26 episodes a season. So
Yeah.
We've done that before.
We've technically lost 2 episodes, but we've also pumped out almost 10 hours of E3 content.
That's true.
The point of order is, after this, we're going on a nominal break. That is to say, regular episodes won't be produced until September. But yeah, we'll still be doing stuff throughout the break because, when you're on Twitch, the last thing you want to do is to be doing less.
Mm-hmm.
Got to keep those stream numbers up. Anyway, with that in mind, regular crew's here. Mac is not here.
Mac is here.
Oh God, he made it. Run.
Mac was not here last time we checked, but snuck in while we were distracted.
Yeah, it's like, you weren't here earlier.
That's what I do. I sneak up on you guys to make sure you're on your toes.
Yeah,
I'm scared.
Well, we're touch and go. Let's just say that this morning about it. So, well, I guess with that in mind, how did your financial reorganization go today?
So far, so good. Hopefully, the 1-star reviews of the credit organization are false.
Oh.
It's about half and half. There's 2 5-star reviews, 2 1-star reviews, and 1 review. We'll see.
So I'm not living in a barrel now.
Well, this is one of those things to where I haven't foreclosed on any options. I'm starting with consolidation, and if that doesn't work out, the same organization can give me a certification for bankruptcy so I can take it to a lawyer and avoid some of the processing.
Mm.
So there is that.
Right.
But, beyond that, it's there's some other issues that are up in the air.
Yeah, you mentioned some of them this morning.
Yep. Of course, since I don't have all those payments, and I just have the one now, if all that works out as advertised, then I won't have to dip into the company fund anymore to pay my credit cards.
That is helpful.
Yep. So it's a step in the right direction.
Yeah. Well, it sounded like it was a bit of an ease on the burden.
We'll see. I called Chase for the ink card, and they immediately redirected me to the fraud division. So that's a minor problem.
I'm like, oh dear. How did that go?
I don't know. They haven't called me back yet.
Oh boy.
I have to change the. Due date for payments to being slightly later in the month, so that way the disbursements go through in a timely fashion. and don't end up incurring more late charges. But I have all of this colorful plastic now that's dead.
Yeah, I remember that.
Make confetti.
Yeah.
I closed 4 of the 6 accounts. I got 2 more to do, and we'll see where it goes from there.
Anyway, so in Moonhawk news,
Well, Keith is talking to me again, so we're partway out of the woods there.
I'm like, was there a problem, or was he just working on shit?
Just life catching up, I know. And I figured I had my own problems to deal with. Now they're cutting hours, so I'm getting my car fixed up so I can drive for Uber. Apparently, my car is just new enough to meet the criteria by about a year and a half.
Well, that's better than not.
Yeah, well, I got to get a crack in the bumper epoxied. I got to replace at least 1 tire, new windshield wipers, possibly brakes and rotors. The regulators on both of my back windows are shot. We need to detail the car inside and out. Needs an oil change, possibly an engine flush.
Sounds like you're almost there.
Yeah, just got
Still-
started.
Still,
Just a
you
little
don't
bit.
need- Still, you don't need to get an axle replaced or anything. So
Well, I don't know that yet.
fair enough.
I passed all the hurdles. Apparently, they don't think I'm a lunatic, so I passed all the hurdles except for the vehicle inspection. So if I can get that, and now that I'm not, now that the funds are going where they're supposed to go, and I got my payments reduced, or at least tentatively reduced, you should see some more positivity from me going forward. But as far as
I mean, you're lucky you live in the arid zone. If you lived in Maine, you probably wouldn't have been able to drive around on that.
I don't know what the hell you're talking about, dude. You could like in Alabama, I could drive around with no hood on my car.
Right. In Maine, we have really fairly strict vehicle inspections annually.
Mhm.
Yeah, you should see California. That was fun.
I bet probably about the same as California, actually.
My 1990 truck passed by 1 point
All you need.
out of a possible 1,000.
I don't.
It scored a 999.
I don't think we even have vehicle inspections here in Florida. Just hit your tag.
You don't in Alabama either. I was like, well, here, I mean, it's like I paid what $12.24 for 2 years worth of registration,
Mm.
and then the registration itself, which was like $69.
Nice.
Yeah. So I mean, it's not horrible to live here, but I'm kind of stuck in a high rent situation, so that doesn't help either.
Mm-hmm.
Well, hopefully things work out.
Yeah, we'll see. Like I said, I'm looking at some possible other employment opportunities. If they're cutting my hours, I can't work like this.
Right.
So it's all puppies. It's all sunshine and puppy dogs for the season finale. But
As
Keith and
long
I
as
are
you
probably-
make it for the season premiere next season, right?
What next season?
Oh, hold on.
Wait, what?
No, they're like anyway.
Executive producer gets scary. No,
Like,
nothing's wrong. I'm just joking because I'm a jerk.
like,
I'm trying to say, we'll probably start working on the animation again this weekend for episode 2 of Starship Moonhawk. Space Destroyer Hunter, until the financial situation is slightly more certain, I'm putting it on temporary hold. I may do the crowdfunding bit, but getting people to look at the crowdfunding bit to hire the voice actors is still a question mark.
Mm.
So, in the meantime, I'm working on comics, clearing commissions, and yeah. Okay, who's next?
all right. Alex.
Not a whole lot going on here. My parents are back from their trip, so everything's kind of back to normal. It's been super humid still, although tonight and tomorrow are supposed to be a little bit better than it has been. And frustratingly, there are some very loud crickets that are parked like right outside my window at night most nights. Um, that actually kept me from getting this much sleep the night before last, which was not a whole lot of fun. But yeah, I'm still making good progress in Hyrule Warriors Definitive Edition, and working on the games that we have for show, and looking forward to having some time off so I can spend some more time with some of the games that I didn't have much time for.
Yeah, like Unavowed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there were a few that actually looked really interesting, and I just did not have time.
It happens.
Mm-hmm.
Like, anyway, anything else?
Nothing really breaking around here.
All right. Betty fan?
Well, I'm probably gonna see about replacing my mouse that the button wore out in because I don't have a strong enough soldering iron to desolder it, and I also need to get some flux, and the cost of that would be the same as another mouse.
Well, I mean, it depends. Like, I got my current mouse for $12.
Well, I usually use Razer mice
Hmm.
because especially how I play Final Fantasy 14, I tried one of those cheap mice. I wore it out in a week.
I don't know. I'm just really anal about how mice fit my hands sometimes.
Yeah, and that's also part of it.
So what you're saying is you're a big proponent of mouse feel.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, if I'm going to be using it for 12 hours a day, I might as well have something that feels nice in the hand, right?
Our comment,
and in this context, it actually means something different than texture.
our webcomics friends will get that reference.
But yeah, I'm still probably going to hold on to that other mouse because that way I'm not going to feel pressured when I do finally get the soldering iron. Because if I end up wrecking it, I just ruined my backup mouse. If I fixed it, hey, I have a backup mouse. You know?
Mm-hmm. Okay, anything, not related to your mouse?
Let's see. I've been trying to get back more into Monster Hunter again.
I wonder why.
Have you bought the Behemoth yet?
Currently I don't have the PC version, and I need to get PS Plus to get people together on the PlayStation 4.
Fair enough. I just figured I'd ask since I was always asking whether people had fought the Rathalos in Final Fantasy 14. So.
But yeah, that's something I want to do when either I can get a new computer together and get Monster Hunter on there, or if I can get PS Plus and finish off the Elder Dragons in the PS4 version. Because apparently you need some good gear to go fight Behemoth. Pouncing with white and sharpness is bullshit.
Well, it's based on the one in 15, right? So they...
It should be based on the one in 14.
I'm not sure about 14. I know in 15 they made the Behemoths a big deal. In some of the older games, they're really not as much. Like, yeah, they're big and scary, but...
Alex, I'm going to stop you right there. Considering this is a collaboration between Final Fantasy 14 and Monster Hunter World, I'm going to go ahead and guess it's based off the Final Fantasy 14 Behemoth.
Also, you're doing 14 mechanics in it for the most part.
Fair enough. I just remembered that there was a big thing with the Behemoth in 15, and that messed up my memory. Sorry.
Mm-hmm. And also, I guess, outside of gaming, Friday I had to go to the ER because kidney stones. That was a fun and enjoyable trip.
What if we told you about keeping a kidney cockatrice as a pet, Betty fan?
Yeah, so...
Yeah, so did you pass the other stone yet?
I haven't passed the first one out of my bladder yet.
Huh.
So that's gonna be that's gonna be enjoyable. So I see the doctor like September 10th is the first available slot they had open, so I'm either passing it on my own basically, or I may be going to the ER again.
Stand to next to a subwoofer and just really blast it.
Debating. I still have the subwoofer from my old speaker set. The speakers are busted, but the woofer works.
I'm like, I'm thinking that's not recommended.
Mhm.
I mean, to be fair,
To
that
do what? Try to make the stone dissolve, or
crushed it really. That
yeah.
honestly, that's basically what a lithotripsy is.
Yeah, they blast it with sound, and it kind of just dissolves because of
Yeah.
the sound.
Hmm.
So that's a thing. And also, kind of like for our off-season things, starting Tuesday, I'm going to be trying to stream our Final Fantasy 14 raids. It's just kind of fun test thing.
Maybe some days I'll be able to drop in and have no idea what's going on.
We'll be killing Kefka, hopefully. We got real close, right, Ogre?
8% on Saturday, and
And
that was
it-
with deaths and damage downs.
Well, and it probably would have been a clear if it wasn't for lag, killing all the
Mhm.
DPS.
Now, is this the easy version or the hard version?
That's
It's
the hard
Savage
version.
Okay.
Yep. Let's see, and I think I'm done. Yeah, I think that's everything.
Okay. Ogre, you're up.
Well, seeing as this is the last episode of the season, this is also my last episode for now.
Aww.
Yeah, well, I told you earlier this year about it.
I know.
I remember. I don't think anyone has forgotten.
No.
Yeah.
You will
Forgot
be
about what?
missed because you will be missed if only because nobody has accuracy increasing gear.
Well, I know you said for now.
Way to win him over on that one.
Well, maybe E3 or maybe somewhere down the line will be like, oh,
I'm
hey,
pretty
I
sure
wanna
if
do
I
this
said
shit
I'm
again.
getting somebody from Final Fantasy 14, Ogre will pop up.
Maybe. We'll see. I'm more or less. I'm kind of just done. I've been done for years. It's just I've been kind of putting it off
Hmm.
because it's been something to do, and I hate that's what it became for me. Was just it's something to do, not like oh boy I have fun doing it. It's like nope, I'm just here.
Fair enough.
Understandable.
And so yeah, last episode of me for now. We'll see how things go down the pipeline. Other than that, this, recordings are going fine. We finished Dungeon Explorer last week, and we're moved on to a new game earlier this week. Should be a fun one, kind of slightly topical in a way. For
That
being
fills me
released a
with
couple
some
years
concern.
back. But yeah, it should be an interesting one to watch because surprisingly Naka's really into it. I was kind of worried he wasn't going to be into it, and he was like, "Yeah, I'm kind of enjoying it."
Hmm.
So that should be fun. It comes out Saturday, I believe, from what he said. Gaming wise, I picked up a Pro controller earlier today,
Cool.
so I got that in my computer right now, hopefully charging if it needs to charge. Oh hey, there's the light. I was wondering where that was.
Yeah, the Switch Pro controller is a really solid controller design, I think.
Well, if Steam's going to be able to use them, I'm going to be using this sucker for like eternity.
Yeah, it's standard Bluetooth, so I think it's compatible with like most things.
Well, you know, Dragon Quest.
Yeah.
Also, let's face it, I like the Joy-Cons, but that left one needs a D-pad, not buttons.
Well, it's like one of my
You
biggest fears
Could've
of getting.
simply just like made a little D-pad thing out of it and just kept the buttons raised.
Yeah, one of my biggest fears on getting a Switch is how small the Joy-Cons are. Like, I don't know if they'd actually be comfortable in my hand.
They're a little
they're
bit
actually pretty comfortable if you put the little plastic bits on them. If you're playing with the Joy-Cons, if you're playing it with the little dock it comes with, I think it's. Let me check real quick.
The Joy-Con grip I never had any problems with, but I don't know how your hand size compares.
It's a little smaller, so maybe there be some kind of awkwardness, but I never had trouble. It was mostly just I kind of wanted a D-pad on the left button, on the left stick thing.
Yeah,
so.
my biggest issue with the Joy-Cons alone is that they're a little too flat, actually, and the grip fixes that handily.
And I'm starting to play through Mega Man X6 right now, and so far kind of enjoying it, but I haven't really hit the bullshit parts yet.
Yeah, I was
so-
gonna say, how many red donuts have you fought?
Oh, I haven't done Blaze Heatniks yet. I barely started it. I did like Shield Sheldon and Commander Yamark. So
Yeah,
now,
some of the stages
so
are
then
fine
I'm
if
just
you
gonna
don't get-
follow the weakness pattern from that point on.
Yeah, some of the stages are pretty fine if you don't get any obnoxious nightmare effects.
But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I beat that and have to go through Beck 7. Yay. But yeah, that's that's kind of it for me. So
All right. Twilight.
All right. Well, as I mentioned last week, had some family who ended up in the hospital, and it was pretty much really gloomy time last week. But we weren't too sure how well things were going to go there. They broke both their ankles, and was having trouble breathing. But things are looking pretty up right now. And they've already operated on their ankles, and now we're just gonna wait and see what happens. They've been able to go without life support for some periods of time, and that's good.
Mhm.
So we can breathe a little easier now. Besides that, my cousin came in again because it's his mother who's in the hospital. And it lightened things up around here a bit. He's already gone back to work since he's got a job to do in DC next week. And outside that, there's not really much else going on around here. I decided to finally take a crack at Stardew Valley, which is been out for a good few years now, and I've been liking it so far.
a Harvest Moon game is always a good game to play.
Yes, it is.
Elemental Ogre supports Harvest Moon, Story of Seasons, and Stardew Valley. Buy it, you little bastards.
Yeah, that'd be about it for me.
All right. I guess it's my go. Let's see. Well, I might be moving like sometime in the intermediate future.
The good
Um,
kind of moving, or the oh fuck, the lease ran out moving?
It's more construction might be happening.
Ah, one of those. The neutral moving.
It's like there's a plot of land nearby that has been going through the legal processes, and apparently it just got approval not too long ago.
Oh boy.
Like, yeah, I'm like,
So is it short distance moving, or?
probably short distance. Like, I don't know. It's more a don't know when the actual construction begins kind of deal, or even if it's still going to happen, because these processes take time.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see what happens on that front. Let's see. Being that we are going on break here, I've been playing games that I don't have to review. It doesn't happen often. I've been playing a lot of Borderlands because I just picked that one. And I think that's about it as far as news goes. Anyway, merrily we shall roll along to the interview portion of the broadcast. And this week we have Harris Foster and Andrew Shouldice of Finji.
Hello.
Hi there.
Oh, right. So how we get started on this. First, we will ask you, how did you get interested in the business of video games, both on a personal and professional level?
Andrew, you've got a little more experience there, so I'll let you start.
Sure. So my name's Andrew. I'm the primary developer on the video game Tunic, and my relationship with video games started pretty early. We had an NES at my childhood home, and got a 386 computer, and I found out at one point that computer had QBasic on it. Which was really exciting. So I got a bunch of old books from the library on how to program in BASIC. And I've sort of been tinkering with computers ever since, eventually using Unity most recently.
Yeah, and I'm Harris. I'm the community manager for Finji. I recently graduated college, started off doing games as my college major, which is a thing now. But quickly moved to communication just because I felt there was an overlap of what I already knew versus what was being taught, and I wanted to get the most out of my education, so I switched to communication. And shortly after that, I landed a few various jobs in games, including a few community management gigs, but mostly landing here at Finji, doing work for all these awesome indie folks.
And how long have you both been at Finji? Well, Andrew, I should ask, are you actually with Finji, or are you like an independent developer and Finji's publishing?
Yeah, the second one. I'm just me, but Finji, Harris, and all the folks there are helping Tunic get in front of as many people as possible.
That's right. Yeah, we consider Andrew a collaborator, which is someone who doesn't work directly for us, but we are helping them produce and publish their project. I am one of 3 actual core members of the Finji studio. So I work alongside Adam Saltzman and Becca Saltzman, who are a wonderful couple, husband and wife, mom and dad, and co-game studio runners. Becca's our CEO. She's a genius. Adam's our head designer. You might know him from the games he's worked on previously. He made Cannibalts, the first ever Endless Runner game. And yeah, now he's got this going on.
And was Cannibalt done by Finji, or was that before Finji?
So Cannibalt is basically what launched Finji. It gave the company what it needed to exist. So technically Cannibalt wasn't under the Finji name, but it helped make Finji what it is. Finji's gone through a few different name changes over the years. I think Cannibalt was under the title Last Chance Media for its publishing when Adam was publishing games on his own. But whenever they decided to become a bigger company, Finji took the Cannibalt name, Finji started publishing all these games, and eventually we can consider Cannibalt to be a Finji game now.
Gotcha. And on the matter of Tunic, well, I suppose it's a 2-tiered question. First, what was the inspiration for the creation of this game, and how did Finji come along and discover Tunic?
Sure. So Tunic is, well, first of all, for those who don't know, Tunic is an isometric action adventure about a tiny fox in a big world where you explore the wilderness, fight monsters, and find secrets. That's the elevator pitch. And it started, officially 3 years ago is when I started work on the project. But long before that, I had been thinking about making a game that tried to capture that feeling of mystery and wonder that you might have had when you rented a NES game from the Blockbuster or whatever, and maybe it came with a tattered manual and you didn't really understand how it worked, but you knew that there was this vast adventure to explore inside it, and that feeling of not really knowing where the borders of the game world ended. That was that feeling that had been stewing for a long time. And then I guess 3 years ago, I had been working at my day job making casual and hidden object games. I thought, well, if I'm going to make a project on my own, if I'm going to turn this vague idea into an actual actual thing that I can share with the world, I should do it now. And so, yeah, I quit my job and started working on it. And then the relationship that Tunic has with Finji grew very organically over those 3 years. So originally it started as sort of a, hey, Adam, what do you think of this? Here's this cool game. Here's what I have in mind design-wise. And eventually it turned more into, hey, Adam and Becca were able to find or give me help on how to find funding for the game and that sort of thing. And eventually, when it came time to make the decision, hey, does this game need a publisher or not? A decision that I made alongside the producer on the game, Felix Kramer. It just made a lot of sense that Finji would be that publisher. We just had an existing relationship and had sort of developed into friends over the course of the years.
Yeah, it really went from small design advice to basically like adopting the whole project as our own game.
Indeed. And so before we continue, first off, we have a trailer of Tunic for those who haven't actually seen the game. Petty Fan, is that queued up?
Let me make sure that... Okay, yeah, that's the right trailer.
All right. So we proceed.
Oh, there it is. How cute.
Right then. And we've got some other footage. This is an E3 demo or something along those lines?
So this one's going to be just kind of raw gameplay. So this is just a good one to talk over. We just want to have this like kind of looping in the background or something.
Yeah. That'll be fine as soon as Petty Fan queues that up.
Okay, and which one was this?
That's the other one.
Okay.
Yeah. There were two videos.
Yeah, I thought I missed one because I was a little late getting over here.
Fair enough. No. I'm like anyway.
Yeah.
Getting back to the game itself here. It definitely seems to be inspired by The Legend of Zelda.
I've heard of that game. Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say one of the things when there was a trailer for this on E3, and one of the first reactions I had to it was that on a scale of like 1 to straight up Link to the Past, the fox is definitely higher than 5.
Sure. Yeah.
Anyway, but yeah, so was the desire to make an isometric, action adventure sort of deal, principally to homage The Legend of Zelda, or were there other reasons involved?
I guess there's definitely a few different things at play there. So that feeling of mystery and exploration obviously has Zelda has that a lot, and so it was definitely an inspiration. And just the feeling of running through a forest and finding cool stuff and wandering around, wondering what's beyond the next corner. That sort of thing was all part of it, and I think the top-downish perspective of like A Link to the Past or other isometric games like Bastion or what have you, is something that we can do now. I'm going to say properly. Like in the past, it used to be that isometric was sort of fiddly because you didn't have full analog control. But now with the advent of gamepads and directional sticks, the problem of which direction really is up is sort of solved now. It's just like whatever is up on the stick is up on the screen. And so you can see in the trailer or the footage that's playing now, we cheat a little bit sometimes and tilt the camera down to, it's not strictly isometric. Sometimes we change the angle a little bit to get a better view of the action. So
yeah, I was gonna say, with actual 3D models, you can also wiggle it a little when you need to, which solves the other major problem, which is things lining up and covering each other in ways you don't want.
Yeah, exactly. That was actually a big design issue early on. I needed to decide, wait a second, how can I build a world that has varied architecture and has things like columns and, forest groves and interiors without having to constantly be worried about what's occluding the player. And most of it comes down to just careful level design. And sometimes that's, you do want to be hiding behind something because, maybe there are secrets there.
Right, and a principal question I have is there any jumping in this game?
He knows.
I'm like,
I take it you're a jumping fan?
Well, no, just isometric jumping has a history of being extremely fraught.
Sure.
I played Landstalker.
You should have tried Dark Savior.
Yeah. So no, at least when you start, there's you're not going to have to. Let me put it this way: you're not going to have to deal with planning and landing jumps. In fact, given that it's like depth is something that's sort of hard to perceive in isometric, one of the things that I try to do is make sure that altitude differences of things are really well communicated. So even if there's no jumping, a problem is stuff like projectiles. If projectiles are not close to the ground, you might get tricked into thinking that you're about to get hit when you're not, or vice versa. And so most of the time we keep those arenas pretty flat, or in the cases where you're dealing with a multi-leveled arena, we try to cue height information for projectiles by having like a little grounding shadow or something like that. So anyway, I guess all of which is to say, I want to allay your fears that the isometric perspective is going to cause navigational or platforming challenges unnecessarily. Now this is not. It's not. We've learned some things since the Amiga days.
But it's not to say that traversal isn't important. That comes a big factor of combat. You'll see the character dodge rolling and maneuvering around, getting positions in. So while we may not have jumping in the traditional sense, movement will certainly be the more you pay attention to it, the more it'll benefit you.
I can definitely see that just from the footage. Like there's a lot of dodge rolls.
Yeah,
Yes.
For sure.
I suppose on that question, is the dodge roll faster than walking?
And if so, does it have a cooldown?
Does it have a cooldown? That is, it's an interesting question because I'm constantly adjusting that and tweaking it. In fact, just last week or earlier this week, I did a bit of an overhaul. So who knows what it'll be like in the end? But the goal is to make you feel very nimble. And
Like a fox?
What? Yeah, you got it. But also requiring you to make certain tactical decisions about how you're going to approach a certain situation. So in the latest iteration, you need to be careful about stamina usage and whether or not your dodge has iframes or that sort of thing. So one of the things that you don't really see in this combat demo or the footage that you're looking at now, but you might see a little bit later, is that the combat gets quite technical and challenging. So that dodge roll, getting a feel for where your iframes are within it and deciding which direction you're going to be dodging to make sure that you're not dodging into danger is something that you're going to have to consider.
Do you have like a strong attack and a weak attack then, or?
So the strong and weak attack is actually based on how many hits you want to get in. So for it, like the primary difference, I mean, traditionally in a heavy attack and a light attack, is one is fast but doesn't do that much damage. The other one requires some amount of commitment, but if you hit, you do more damage. And in Tunic, you've got a couple of options there. One, you can use a different weapon, like you could use a heavier weapon, which is going to have a different moveset. So, for instance, you start out with a stick, and that quickly gets replaced by a sword, and the movesets are slightly different. Sword is almost definitely better. And later on, you're going to get things that are a little bit more varied still. But the primary way, let's say you're just using your sword, is to decide when you want to back out of your combo. So if you're just hammering on the attack button, let's say you've assigned your sword to the X button, and you're mashing on that X button, you'll execute combos. So you'll do a slash one way, you'll do a slash the other way, and then finally a stab, like a big old thrust, is the third attack. But the recovery on that thrust is not instantaneous. I've got a street cleaning mobile going by outside, so please, can you hear that?
Not enough to be a problem.
Okay, good. So let's say you are hammering on that attack button and realize, oh no, I only needed to, in order to kill this enemy, I only needed to do the 1-2. Did not need to do that 3. You do the 3, and now you're sort of like, you're committed to this thrust action. Maybe that's good, maybe it's not. And so the heavy light is sort of like how long, it's like you got to do some live cost benefit analysis for how many hits you want to put into this combo.
The reason you were talking about technical combat, so I was wondering if it was a lot of like you have to choose. But the number of attacks in a combo is another good way of doing that.
Yeah, and there's stuff like there's some secret techniques that. So one of the elements of this game is that you find pages of the manual for the game hidden inside the game. So like I mentioned before, I really love, leafing through old manuals for games and seeing what like weird secrets are hidden in there. And so by placing manual pages for this game in it, you can start hiding some sort of like weird esoteric combinations of attacks, or things like this special attack roll stab. So if you execute a dodge and use your sword attack on at exactly the same time, like I think it is or is very nearly frame perfect, you will do a roll into stab. And so that's another sort of like expressive way that you might want to vary up your combat. So maybe I want to do a 1-2 hit here, and then I need to be over there, or this thing moves really fast. And so the only way to catch up to it is to do the roll into stab. And then later on, you don't see it in this footage, but there's some more exotic weaponry that is, useful in and of itself, but becomes super powerful when you start using them in combination. So for instance, there might be some weapons that are really effective at close range, and you've got something else that helps close the distance between you and an enemy. You can imagine how those things could be used together in order to do some pretty interesting stuff.
And you said if you have your weapon set to the A button, do you have like multiple things that you can equip at the same time to different buttons, or?
Yeah, so the way it works is, imagine you're holding your Xbox One controller in your hand, or I've got an Xbox 360 one here. The A button on the bottom is your sort of like interact dodge roll button, and then X, Y, and B are all completely customizable for your inventory items. So by pressing one of the bumpers, your inventory sort of slides in, and then you select the item that you want and hit the button that you want to assign it to. So it's super fast to pop in and assign sort of you think of it as a loadout. Depending on the enemies that you're encountering, you might think like, I definitely want my sword, but I also want to use this, this item and this item. I'll put those in Y and B. And then your shield is going to be on right trigger once you find it.
Right, not to bring up a Zelda comparison again, but kind of like the way that the Game Boy Zeldas did it, where you have like, you can change between your sword and your shield is default. It sounds like in this game, but you can switch out your things, and that raises the question that I'm not expecting you to actually answer. If there are any interesting combinations of, like, if you have two things equipped at the same time and use them at the same time, if they can combine in interesting ways, because that's the system that it reminds me of had a couple of those.
I think we can answer that question directly and say there will be instances where things will combine in interesting manners, but
okay,
yeah, for sure. Like in particular, the like, not necessarily you press them. Well, yeah, I guess if you press them both at the same time, something interesting might happen. Yeah, we can. I guess we can leave it at that.
Right. So shifting away from combat, are there going to be any sort of puzzles and indeed items? How much of that can we talk about here?
Yeah, so definitely exploring the world and finding sort of like different cool relics that you can use for your own purposes is definitely part of the game. So finding items is definitely part of it. And there are, I guess you'd call them puzzles, but they are, let's call them like larger, like macroscopic puzzles. One of the things that I really appreciated about very, very early Zelda games, like, you know, Zelda 1 and 2, versus some of the stuff that came later, is that the puzzles in those games were I don't know, they were a part of the design as opposed to something just sort of like socketed in.
Less of a really big obvious set piece puzzle and more of a, okay, these are the tools I have. How do I get through this room that I can't get through quite as easily? And yeah. I noticed when I was in the other room, there's a chest on that wall. So maybe on the other side of that wall, there's something I can do to get through that.
Yeah, you got it. That's exactly right. And stuff like, so if in say Zelda 1, there's a dungeon at the very end of the game. If you go into it, you'll just find yourself going in circles over and over again until you think about it for a second. You're like, wait a second, what is this room in the middle that I keep circling around? And you bomb into it, and there's a secret passage. And yeah, so that's the sort of stuff that I'm talking about. Because I guess what you could say, in Tunic, you probably will not find the sort of quote unquote puzzles that you see in some games where you walk into a room and you look around and you see, okay, I know what this symbology all means, and this is a brain teaser that has a solution, and I need to do all the things to figure it out. And that is really fun in some circumstances, but it makes the world feel very much like it is made for you. It is a sort of like, there's a lot of like literal clockwork dungeons or figurative clockwork dungeons in some of those games. And I think, what is it like to explore that sort of place that has fallen into ruin? What if that stuff doesn't work anymore? What if the puzzles of the world are larger and more abstract and not these sort of like slat around the tiles until you form the picture of the ghost and then the door unlocks, Instead of that, what if we had some stuff that was more where the solution answered something about the world as opposed to just unlocking a door?
One of the ways you explained it while we've been working a show together that I really, really liked was, it's not going to be a blue door, blue key solution like that, where it's not so much a puzzle as it is an obstacle. And you put it a really good way one time. You were talking to someone and you said, Tunic is not a game that will have what you're used to as a puzzle, but something more like riddles.
Sure, yeah.
And I think that's a really good way of putting it.
Yeah, but someone mentioned a little bit earlier, I don't know if it was you, Adam, but the idea of a lot of the interactions that you do and the challenges that you face being combat based is something that I think is going to be played up. Like you said, hey, how do I approach this problem given the tools that I have, is something that I'm definitely trying to lean into a little bit. So when you are out there exploring this big wide world, I am doing my very best to not gate your progress with what we call a hard gate. So a hard gate would be something like a door that you need to go and find the blue key for. If there is a door like that, there's probably another way to get by it. there's probably a secret passage or a roundabout way to clear this obstacle. Or I don't know what the stream delay is like, but there's this enemy with a big shield that you see there. And normally, under normal circumstances, you need to wait until you get the right enemy to, like make it drop its shield or whatever. But if you know some special techniques, like, that secret roll stab that I mentioned before, you can execute that and get in behind the shield and make it drop it. And now all of a sudden, this gate that could have been implemented as a door with a key is now sort of a soft gate, where if you are courageous and persistent and skilled, maybe you can slip past and get into a place where you're not supposed to be.
And you talk about the spirit of the early Zeldas. I suppose that goes into non-linearity. Like, how non-linear is this game going to be?
So there is a route that we expect to be the sort of like the typical path, but the sound designer on the game, actually, I should bring up, is a guy named Kevin Regami. He works at a company called Power Up Audio, who do work on a pile of indie games. Like they did the audio for Darkest Dungeon and Crypt of the Necrodancer and Celeste and Towerfall. And Kevin, is a valued member of the speedrunning community. And so we have also been building the game with that sort of thing in mind, whether it's a like straight up speedrunning tech situation, or if it's a sequence break sort of situation. We want to make sure that if there are ways to deviate from this, like, quote unquote suggested path, nothing's going to stop you. So we've been designing the game such that you'll probably bumble your way through it in a particular way, but there are also, we want to make you feel like you're, getting lost in all the right ways. So the goal is that you can tackle the challenges in the game in a number of different orders. And more interestingly, the structure of the game is such that as you learn things about the world, you will be able to look at it without saying too much, you'll be able to sort of like look at challenges that before presented a particular type of challenge, and now see them in an entirely new light and be able to approach them in maybe like a way that you didn't expect the second time through. And that's super vague, but I think maybe you catch my drift.
I do on a couple of levels here. Anyway, the language. We've seen in the footage this mysterious language that shows up from time to time. What's that all about?
Good question. I haven't been able to figure it out, and
yeah, it's confused all of us around here.
The line that we usually give is that we have no idea, and in fact, in truth, we just found this prototype on an old cartridge in a dusty attic, and we just got it to run on modern hardware, and it's full of these mysterious glyphs that no one understands.
It's totally because you're a fox, you can't read, right?
Yeah,
that's what it is. Yeah,
this is what normal everyday writing looks like to a fox with no sense of language or anything.
Duly noted. And the title Tunic, is that in reference to like a specific tunic, a legendary tunic, or is there another meaning behind that name?
That's a really good question. So originally the game was called Secret Legend for a long time. And it started as just sort of like this prototype, like this is the name of the project file sort of thing. Like, it's a terrible name.
That is what the demo file on all of our computers is still called.
Yeah. secretlegend.exe or whatever.
Yep.
And I started, sharing it on Twitter. I'm working on this thing, blah, blah, blah. And people got really excited. And so it sort of like took on a life of its own and had this name that was supposed to be Temp. And we didn't have a new name. It was sort of like, oh gosh, we really need to deal with this. Like, it's actually an awful name. It's people can't remember it. The first PAX that it was at was a bit of a problem because people would play it, be like, "Oh wow, Fox game, it's so awesome," and then they'd walk away, and the only thing they could tell people was, "You got to go check out Fox game. It's secret something, legend of something, blah blah blah." It was just it was Teflon to the human brain, just slipped right off, and so we desperately needed to come up with a new title, and there's a multi-page Google Doc called "Secret Legend is a Bad Name," filled with ideas on what the game should be called, and struggled with it for a long time. And in 2017, the game was being shown at the PC Gaming Show at E3, and that was the real deadline. Like, this game needs a title for realsies. And so we revisited that document, and previously Tunic had been thrown on there as sort of like an maybe, or use it in combination with something else like Tunic and something. And suddenly it just sort of clicked. This is a long-winded answer, but there was suddenly wait a second, there's maybe just the tiniest whisper of extra meaning beyond this now. The game is full of secrets, and maybe, one of them is vaguely related to that. So sort of a non-answer that, yes, there is some various significance to it, but the real reason behind the name is that it's short, it's sweet. The SEO on it was good. There hadn't been a game called Tunic before we could get the domain name and the Twitter account. Nobody hated it, and there were some sort of secret behind-the-scenes meanings.
Well, gotta like how the practicality marries with the lore.
Yeah, exactly. And that's a thing that when I had talked to a bunch of other independent game developers when trying to name things, and that was the advice that I heard over and over again, which is find something that you don't hate and that works, practically speaking.
Yeah. Well, congratulations then. Anyway.
I think it's a great name. They picked that name before I was on the team, and I think it's a lovely name.
Aw, thanks, Harris.
Anyway, so this game is, from what I recall, coming out on the PC and the Xbox One, right?
That's correct.
So I suppose the question is, why is it not coming on, say, the PlayStation or the Switch?
I can talk about this one unless you'd like to, Andrew.
Yeah, no, go for it.
So yeah, it's just console exclusives are a thing. And when you set out to release a game, depending on the excitement levels for it, you will get noticed by the console manufacturers, and they'll offer you basically exclusivity deals, whether it be timed or permanent. And the wording on the deal that we have with Microsoft is that it is a console launch exclusive. So whenever Tunic does appear on consoles, it will exclusively launch on the Xbox One. So when Tunic launches, it will launch on the Xbox One console first.
Gotcha.
So yeah, then we love our friends at Microsoft. They're a great group of people, and they are working really hard with us to make this the best game possible. But yeah, you will be able to play Tunic on consoles first on Xbox One, and also on PC and Mac the same day.
Okay. And, no Linux version?
We get questions about that a lot, and it's certainly possible. But Linux is a tricky thing, and it's to get a little candid with you, it's less than 1% of all Steam hardware surveys that come back say that they're gaming on Linux. So whenever you do game on Linux, I've used Linux in my life and I liked it, but it's just a very, very small audience, so it's a whole lot of work for not a lot of payoff. So it's certainly possible. We're definitely not saying no, but it's not really a high priority right now.
The game is being, I might have mentioned it before, the game is being developed in Unity, which obviously will publish to Linux. So we're going to do our very best for it. Like Harris said, the audience is small, but the nice thing about the Linux user base is that they are
loud.
I was going to say dedicated and loyal. And so even if there aren't that many of them, it can still be, if it's possible, we're definitely going to do it.
Yeah, no,
Makes sense.
I honestly I have mad respect for Linux gamers, just because it seems like a tough place to game, and like I want to give them as much support as possible. So yeah, to put it out on Linux would be awesome, and we're gonna try to do that.
Yeah, the other cool thing is that I feel like the Linux user bases are the sort of people who would want to help with testing across platforms, which is cool and appreciated. So maybe that will be what happens. Who knows?
Okay. So since this game is launching on the Xbox One, is this game going to be native 4K on the Xbox One X?
So there's a few different sort of like badges that Xbox puts on those things. So one of them is Xbox One. What is it? Xbox One X Enhanced.
Yeah.
And that we can that terminology has been applied to this game before, just because by the very nature of the power of the Xbox One X, you're going to see things like improved load times and the like. As far as things like HDR and 4K, don't know yet. Gonna have to look at it. It's the sort of game that's got like like technically speaking, geometry is pretty simple. Like everything is like fairly low poly, but graphically and lighting wise, it's very complicated. And so even though you're not drawing that many triangles, if you got a lot of pixels on the screen, you're now doing a lot of pixel operations, which would be things like lighting and AO and stuff like that, could get sort of tricky. So yeah, I'm gonna do our best to make sure that it looks as good as possible.
Right. And what sort of resolution options are going to be available for the PC version?
That's a good question. I haven't.
1090p, baby.
What did you say?
1090p.
I don't even think there are that many pixels.
No.
Nobody's invented that many pixels. That's a good question. So one of the things that I'm doing, so things like graphics customizability settings are things that I'm going to be looking at with a closer eye, closer to launch. Right now, it's just sort of like building content. But internally for testing, what I do is I have, that thing where you can scale the resolution of the sort of like game view or world camera, but the UI stays the same size. Do you know what I'm talking about? What do modern video games call that?
It's UI scaling, right?
Is that what it is?
I know. You know what we're talking about, right? It's like whenever you play Roller Coaster Tycoon at 4K and everything's super tiny. You're like, well, it looks really sharp, but I can't use anything.
Yeah, upscaling and downscaling.
Yeah. So, for instance,
something like that.
Yeah. What there's tech for that built in. So, for instance, if I want to play this game on my super crappy old laptop, then I go in and say like, yeah, play have the UI at a normal, reasonable resolution, but only render the world at like 320 pixels or something like that. It's a really bad laptop, but or I could be playing it at 1080. So the ability to adjust the scale of the game rendering resolution on PC is definitely something that I've been looking at, and people have beefy computers out there, beefier than my development machine even. So I imagine you'll be able to get this looking pretty nice on those machines.
To answer the question, like in the now, we run the game at 1080p on show floor, and that's on a like little Alienware Steam machine kind of thing. Remember those? We use.
I was about to say those exist.
Yeah. Those little $500 boxes they used to make. So yeah, we run it at 1080p on those, and it runs at 60. This footage we're looking at here, this was captured in a higher resolution, right, Andrew? Or
I don't know. I think I've got this obnoxious monitor at home that's got like 5,000 pixels or something, which means making capture was sort of tricky. I needed to actually switch it down to a lower resolution to do the capture, so it wasn't trying to eat up all those pixels all at once. So I don't remember exactly. But 1080 is definitely the sort of like standard. Here's where I test it and configure it. But who knows what the future will bring.
Basically what we're saying is you're going to be able to count the hairs on his tail and see the veins in his eyes.
Gross. This man does not represent me.
I do.
Oh, Oh no.
Well then, that's a turn.
Anyway, right. So we are running short on time, so just a couple more questions here. Well, what about the music? Something we haven't been able to experience because we are talking is the soundtrack of the game. What sort of style are you going for, and how much music are you shooting for?
For sure. So the music is by a guy named Terrence Lee. He goes by the name Life Formed. And you might have heard his music before. He did the soundtrack to a game called Dust Force, say a platformer where you have a broom. And he also did the soundtrack to the Double Fine documentary, or Double Fine Adventure, whatever it was called. And it was that soundtrack, the Double Fine Adventure one, an album called Immerse, that made me fall in love with Terrence's music, and it served as a great inspiration for this game. And so Terrence Lee is doing a whole new album for the game. As far as exact number of tracks, it's a good question. We've been talking a little bit about having some long tracks for larger areas and some shorter leitmotifs for smaller areas. So I think it'll be varied. I don't have a track count or anything like that in mind. But yeah, it's super incredible. He made a custom score for the Xbox 2018 E3 trailer. So if people want to check that out, that was the trailer that we showed earlier. It's a beautiful piano accompaniment to the trailer, and it's really awesome. And yeah, Terrence is definitely going to be releasing the album when it's ready.
I saw a rough cut of that E3 trailer, and Andrew's notes over it of what he wanted the music to be like were really, really great notes. It's just things like big sound here, make it exciting here, swirly music here, and it's
spooky.
Really good director's notes.
And Terrence delivered.
Yeah, that's the thing that surprised me the most about coming out of E3 with people checking out the trailer. I knew people were going to love the trailer, but I didn't expect such call outs of the music in particular. People were just asking all about the music, and the music's fantastic, but I didn't expect people to just focus in so hard on that. And that was a really cool moment to be able to direct them to Terrence.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that is a that is a big win, especially given that the game was originally very much inspired by Terrence's music. To have a custom soundtrack by him as part of it, that is in turn exciting people, I think means that we're in the right direction.
And I'll end things by asking, any word on release date or price?
$1 billion, and it's been out for 3 years. We don't have anything like that yet. Where it's going to be ready when it's ready. It's just Andrew working on the bulk of this game. So we're giving him as much time as he needs. And in terms of price, it's going to be the price of a downloadable game. So we're not going to charge full $60 for this, but it's definitely have we said anything about price? I don't think we really have.
No, nothing like that. But
honestly, we just don't really even know how we're going to price it yet. So that is something we are working out. But yeah, you'll have a date and a price probably at the same time, but we're not really announcing anything right now.
Yeah. I don't think the price is going to be anything surprising or anything like that.
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. Right, I'll see if my colleagues have any final questions.
Sure.
I think all mine were answered.
I'm good.
Cool.
Alex, did you mute yourself again?
Yes, I did. Sorry. I think I asked most of my questions, but actually I just thought of one. Are there going to be any big scary bosses?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So at the end of the, I like big scary bosses. One of my favorite things in the world is to make and animate big scary creatures. And at the end of both last year's sort of sneak peek and this year's Microsoft E3 press conference trailer, there is, let's just say, something that you might fight at the end of each of them. Part of the feeling of being a small creature in a big inhospitable world is having giant things smash you to bits. So yes.
Yeah, we've got the big scary monster at the end of this trailer, and I thought to myself, oh well, Andrew got lucky. He made a cool final boss. he's a one-hit wonder. That's all there can be. And then he showed me another giant monster that is very interesting looking, and it's even cooler than the one you've been seeing. So I'm really excited for people to take a look at his next big scary monster.
Okay.
All right then. Well, I'd like to thank you both for taking the time out of your schedules to join us this week. I'm looking forward to the game. Like, it looks really good, and I do like me a Zelda romp. Like, hopefully we can review the game when it comes out. It's like, and yeah. So the game is Tunic. It's coming out for the PC and Xbox One. Are you at least shooting for this year?
Probably not going to be this year. We would like for it to be next year, but even if it's not next year, it'd be the year after that.
Okay. Well,
I'm
one
doing
of
my
these
best,
years.
I promise. Yeah.
But yeah, we have it playable. We have the demo that you're watching right now. You can play only at conventions. So we're gonna be partnering with Xbox to have it at Gamescom. If you're in Europe, you can go play at Gamescom at the Xbox booth, and we'll also be at PAX West 2018, where you'll be able to play it at the Finji booth.
Yeah, and if you're interested in learning more about Tunic, you can go to tunicgame.com and sign up for the mailing list there, or you can follow Tunic Game on Twitter.
All right. Thank you very much. Petty Fan, play us to the next segment. Right, so welcome to the topic of discussion. I know we're running a little long this week, but it's the season finale, so we can go a bit late.
Mm-hmm.
Right, so we're talking about emulation, we're talking about ROMs, mainly because Nintendo's been in the news about this. You know, they recently, I think, issued a DMCA takedown to, EMU Paradise?
Yeah, and several others.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah, and in fact, I think they are engaged in a lawsuit against these sites. And the internet lost its collective shit about it. And there's been a lot of arguments about it because I've seen this argument, I've seen this cycle go on for, God, I don't know, as long as there have been emulators, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, you know, it's like, I will admit, I've used several emulators. I used to have, you know, entire systems worth of ROMs. These days, I just don't have time for that.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
but, you know, and invariably, the argument has been framed in a couple different ways. And like the most legit one is preservation. Like, this is a topic we've talked about on the program. You know, in fact, you know, we've talked about it with Night Dive on several occasions, because the dirty truth is a lot of games, the only way they're getting preserved is through piracy. You know, because of a whole host of factors. Like GOG released a documentary not too long ago about the business and work they do in restoration and how laborious it can be to do things the proper way. You know, when you pirate, when you engage in piracy, whatever else, it's easy. It's when you don't have to worry about the rules. Yeah, you can have that ROM of, say, Fester's Quest up there. Like, you know, it's like, when in reality, that game would be rather hard to get to market, because, let's see, it's a licensed game, you know, not an obscure one, but still, like, not one that's very in demand. You know,
not one that is, in fact, objectively a particularly good game if you get down to it.
No, but that's
but that doesn't mean it's not worth having as part of the historical record.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of like the quality is immaterial here. Like, but the publisher is no longer in operation. Hasn't operated in North America for eons, but they're probably like they still exist though, which is one of the better options because in a lot of games, you don't have that option. A lot of acclaim games, or like if you wanted to get the game, let's see, I don't know, or like THQ's Home Alone. It's like that one. The original company doesn't exist anymore. The developer, I'm not sure exists anymore. There are so many instances of this.
And just because a company exists that has taken most of a company's properties and their name doesn't necessarily mean they have all of them.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, I don't think THQ Nordic could get the rights to that Home Alone game, even though they technically have most of THQ's assets.
They probably could, actually, if they made a deal with Fox.
Yeah, touche.
Yeah.
Because one thing that THQ Nordic did a few months ago was announce that they struck a deal with Nickelodeon to release some of the classic Nickelodeon games the original THQ put out. Some of those SpongeBob SquarePants games and what have you. But once again, at the very least, Nickelodeon is a popular license, so you can understand the financial incentive behind that. As far as game, another random example, Home Improvement for the Super NES. Yeah, people remember that, but nobody's really going to be clamoring to bring that back.
Yeah, or like I had a Barney game for the Genesis back when I was little. I don't think anybody would be clamoring to bring that back.
And another thing about these licenses is they're not permanent. Because an example of some games that did return last generation, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle arcade games, the original arcade game released on the Xbox 360 early in its life, and then the NES version hit the Virtual Console, and then there was that horrible Turtles in Time reshelled. The point is, those came back, but they only came back for a while until the licensing deal expired, and those games went back into the void, and you can't access them.
Similar thing with something like PT. Unless you have it on a PlayStation that you can never connect to the internet again.
Yeah, and that's a little bit more active of an attempt to remove stuff.
Yeah. Right. You can play it, but that console can never connect to the internet again, or else it will be removed by Sony.
Or Darkspawn. That's another one of our go-tos here. That is a game you literally cannot play.
Because it had always on DRM, or required to start up DRM. And
it communicated with an actual game server.
Right.
It wasn't as much DRM. The server that actually held the game no longer exists.
Yeah, so you just can't, you just flat out can't play that. And, we call this MMO syndrome because God knows that there are, just hundreds of MMOs out there over the eons.
RuneScape recently just shut down.
Yep. I think I saw that. And RuneScape's been around for fucking ages.
Yeah, I used to play RuneScape in elementary school.
Yeah.
Same.
Another a long-running series, I think, was the Asheron's Call games. Those ran for a fucking long time.
Yeah, and I think RuneScape people are trying to basically make a mirror server because the assets weren't hard to get the way it was programmed.
That can be done.
Yeah, but it's still something like some older stuff, like maybe EverQuest. There's demand, but getting it back to the way you remember it will be difficult.
Yeah, it's demand, but it would have to be a labor of love because it sure as hell isn't going to be profitable.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
The point of order is there, and going back to just say a traditional game, game rights aren't universal sometimes. That is to say, somebody might own the code, somebody might own the music, somebody might own the characters.
Yeah, this is a lot more prevalent in the older days, like
Yeah.
like before the mid 2000s, especially.
Yeah, I'm like.
Yeah, the Mega Man X Legacy Collection actually had to have some songs taken off, some beginning and end songs taken off because they lost the license over here. But yet, if you import the Japanese version, they're still on there.
Yeah.
And like, there's some deal with the Sonic music. I think Sega doesn't own like the first two Sonic the Hedgehog soundtracks or something like that.
Yeah, but I think they recently got those back.
Yeah, and so on and so forth. There's so many reasons why a game can't legally be released, and in those cases, if you don't have it's piracy or oblivion.
Mm-hmm.
And
well, it's piracy or expensively, try and find a cartridge that may or may not work anymore, like cartridge or a disc, and finding hardware that may or may not work anymore.
Right, and this is especially concerning with arcades, because arcades, a lot of arcades out there are rotting, literally rotting out there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And there are a decent number of arcade machines that are designed to emulate older arcade things, but not enough.
Yeah, like.
And then there are things like the Deco system, which I don't have a lot of time to explain, but this was Data East's proprietary arcade system in the early 80s. Things like Burger Time and Lock and Chase came on them, and they were on magnetic tapes.
And there are also some arcade games that basically had suicide chips that once the battery drained, the game is lost forever.
Like it, so once again, a lot of these things, if they're not even gotten to the black market, like that Donkey Kong 3 Hudson sequel thing that a bunch of dedicated fans found, like if they don't get a mirror of that onto the internet or something like that, and that thing decays, it's gone for good.
Mm-hmm.
And I can understand the desire or even need to not have websites just distributing other people's intellectual property all over the place. But that doesn't mean that if you're going to do that, there should still be some way to preserve them, at least as a historical thing.
Yeah, like
and there are people who are doing that, like Digital Eclipse and the Video Game History Museum and so on and so forth.
Yeah, people want to draw on about video games being art, but the people who own them, the licenses and stuff, sometimes they don't want to try and preserve the art.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't know, man. Just people are weird.
Yeah.
Okay. That being said, going to Nintendo's perspective, I'm not sure what people were expecting Nintendo to do.
Mm-hmm.
Nintendo has always had an anti-ROM stance, an anti-emulator stance, and they do have more financial incentive to do it now because they have their own virtual console, they have their own NES Classic, and a note to Jim Sterling, it's like it doesn't really matter how expensive a thing is.
If you're giving it out for free, you're cutting into them legally trying to distribute it.
Yeah, it's like Nintendo can charge whatever it wants for ice climbers. I'm like, the moral argument here is either you buy it or you don't. Like, it's like I'm honestly stunned that this kind of opinion is being tolerated, because I remember for the longest time, admitting to piracy, admitting to downloading ROMs for the real reason you downloaded ROMs, because they were free games. You didn't, it's like,
yeah, used to be a whole lot of people at the very least kind of making sideways jokes about why they were actually downloading things, but not actually saying that, oh, I was downloading it for free because I can.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's like...
Like, I didn't grow up with a Super Nintendo, so, like, when I used to, like, play ROMs or something, I was experiencing these games for the first time. I'd have no way to get a hold of them now.
Still waiting for another way to play the Erdrick trilogy, Square Enix, that ain't on a smartphone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and mobile ports are not sufficient. Just no, they're not.
Right, but anyway.
I mean, I guess it's better than absolutely nothing, but geez.
It's like, if you want to have that both ways, have the ROM of winter games up there, or Zybots for the Atari Lynx, and
stuff that's basically abandonware.
Yeah, it's like abandonware wasn't any more legal, but it was always tolerated more because
like, who's gonna come after it?
Yeah.
The tangled web of figuring out who owns this isn't worth what they would get from going after them for it.
Yeah, and I'll note the abandonware community also understood that when stuff got legitimized, that comes down. Or at least, some of it, there's always going to be the people that just, use it as the pretense for piracy. But, like Home of the Underdogs is a supremely important site. Like that was the way you played System Shock 2 if you didn't have the original disc until Night Dive picked it up. So, there's definitely an argument to be made that piracy, whatever moral quandary it poses, does have an important function. But on the other hand, don't try to justify, like engaging in pricing. Like, it's one thing to say that something is overpriced, but to just go and do the thing. No, that's not right.
Let's face it, $4.99 for Ice Climbers in this day and age is better than what its original release price was. No matter
and even
what
on
you say.
even on eBay or whatever, the shipping and handling will be more than $3.99 or $4.99.
Well, and here's the thing that people are kind of, I think, a little bit forgetting in the current $60 video game climate is that I had a Super Nintendo growing up. I did not have even a third of the games I wanted because, one, I was a kid, but Super Nintendo games were fucking expensive.
Wasn't Chrono Trigger like $80?
I believe so.
Something like it.
And like Earthbound was probably something like that because it had the player's guide as well.
Yeah. There was actually a significant cut in the price of video games when they transferred to discs.
Yeah, and it's like the whole idea of games losing their value. Yeah, that argument can be made as well, but it's like. Like, you are free to not buy Ice Climbers at $5. If you don't think it's worth it, that's how that works.
Nobody's twisting your arm.
It's like I cannot believe I have to spell that out. It's like I understand the smart thing for Nintendo to do would maybe charge less, but I think they might be doing that with the Nintendo Online thing. At the very least, that's going to be a lot more Netflixy with their releases. And also, let's be honest here, in regards to Nintendo or Sega or Atari, anyone whose history is significantly mined regularly. I don't think you need to have the ROM up. Like no, like Super Mario Brothers 3 is not going to fall through the fucking cracks.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
I think we're pretty good on, unless it's a really obscure and like licensed by Nintendo Mario game, you're not going to really lose out on a lot of the big Mario games or anything like that.
Right.
Yeah,
So
the problem is all of the games that are not major franchises that are interesting for some historical reason or just as a curiosity, and just they aren't and may possibly can't be being resold, and sites that store ROMs were like one of the places where that game still existed. And video game emulation is hard to start with.
Mm-hmm. Well, anything post N64 is hard.
Yeah, and even stuff for like the SNES, there are some games for like, it was kind of a big deal when the SNES Mini came out, because some of the games on it were not really, I mean, aside from the whole Star Fox 2 things, had been very difficult to emulate because of special chips.
Mm-hmm. And I'm looking at the eShop now on the 3DS, stuff like the mainline Pokemon games for $10. Yeah, that's basically a steal. Especially with those cartridges, the batteries dying and saves being lost.
Yeah.
Shantae for $5 is a steal.
Right.
You know, there are very good deals for some of these games that are going for like $90 to $100 plus now, but you can get on the eShop for under 10.
Yeah, the big issue is it's with the games that aren't on the eShop because various reasons.
All right, so I think that'll about do it for this discussion, and indeed, that'll do it for the season. We'll be off for 2 weeks. We'll be back. Let's see. Our first like official thing will probably be Friday, August 31st. And reviews will be resuming. Oh, sorry, that's August. Here we go. Will be August 31st.
Yep.
Reviews will start September 2nd. And our first proper show will be September 5th. Until then, from all the cast and crew here, I wish you good gaming.